Welcome to today's explainer. Okay, get ready because we are about to investigate the very DNA of mystery and thriller fiction. We all love a good page turner, but have you ever stopped to wonder why certain stories just completely hijack our brains and keep us up reading until 3 in the morning? Well, today, we're putting the genre itself right under the magnifying glass. We're going to trace its psychological roots, examine the specialized professionals who solve these fictional crimes, look at the hard data on what readers are actually buying, and finally, explore the evolving face of the authors behind the pages. So here's our case file for today. First, the anatomy of mystery. Second, courtrooms and crime labs. Third, what readers want most. And fourth, changing the face of crime. Okay, let's dive right into this with Section 1, the anatomy of mystery. Take a look at this evolution because it's actually wild. During the 20th century, the American detective story just completely transformed. It started out deeply rooted in forensic and criminal nonfiction, but it rapidly broke through those genre boundaries to become the dominant model of literary justice worldwide. It influenced everything: film, radio, even computer games. We're talking about a global cultural phenomenon that literally shaped how society understands concepts of justice, truth, and morality. Now, this quest for justice, it basically splits into two totally different psychological experiences. On one hand, you've got your cozy mystery. This treats crime like a puzzle in a safe, contained environment. The psychological payoff here is comfort. It's that reassuring promise that order will be restored and the community is going to be purified. But on the flip side, we have the hard-boiled mystery. This one uses crime as a lens to expose the inherent corruption of society. It demands real intellectual rigor. You get this catharsis through uncovering the ugly truth, but, rarely do you get a neat, tidy resolution. So depending on whether you want a comforting mental escape or an intellectually cynical challenge, the whole structure of the novel just completely shifts. But honestly, no matter which subgenre you pick up, some tropes are just universally captivating. Take The Small Town with Big Secrets. This is a setting where familiarity actually breeds silence. Everyone knows everyone, the history runs deep, and the most dangerous secrets aren't just hidden, they are actively protected by the community itself. Think of those brilliant novels like Gillian Flynn's Sharp Objects or Leanna Moriarty's Big Little Lies. The tension in these stories doesn't just come from figuring out who committed the crime. It comes from the chilling reality of discovering who looked away. It's all about collective guilt. Let's move to Section 2 and see how this builds. Courtrooms and crime labs. So if you love a massive, high-stakes ethical dilemma, the legal thriller absolutely delivers. This subgenre just seamlessly blends the intellectual complexity of the law with the breathless suspense of crime fiction. You've got heavy hitters like John Grisham, whose works basically define the genre, right alongside Scott Turow, who brings actual, real-world prosecutor experience straight to the page, and Lisa Scotlaney, who's known for these incredibly compelling female protagonists. Whether you're reading a classic courtroom drama or a huge corporate conspiracy, the appeal is that really unique blend of procedural accuracy and fictional thrills. You literally get to peer into the inner workings of the American justice system while trying to solve a super complex puzzle. But wait, what happens when the evidence is biological instead of legal? Enter forensic crime fiction. Our sources point out a fascinating shift right here: the incredibly prominent role of women as medical examiners and forensic scientists. For a long time, there was this misconception that female forensic examiners in literature just exhibited typically masculine traits to survive in a gritty world. But that is fundamentally incorrect. The inclusion of the female gaze actually humanizes the victims of crime. Rather than just treating a body as, scientific evidence on a slab, these narratives focus on reclaiming the victim's story. And that completely alters the traditional dynamic between the killer and the investigator, bringing this deep, empathetic dimension to the actual science. All right, Section 3, what readers want most. So we know the formulas and the characters that make up the genre, right? But what are readers actually opening their wallets for today? Well, looking at the current literary market, psychological thrillers are absolutely crushing it right now. Ever since the massive breakout success of Gone Girl, readers just cannot get enough of unreliable narrators and deep psychological distress. But right behind them, we have the steadfast favorites: cozy mysteries and historical mysteries. These offer those contained puzzles we talked about earlier. Romantic suspense and spy thrillers are also maintaining incredibly strong readership, especially as spy thrillers are becoming way more diverse and contemporary. But here's a really interesting twist. Noir and supernatural mysteries, they're currently sitting way down at the bottom of the popularity list. And you kind of have to ask yourself, why is that? Has noir, which obviously peaked back in the mid-20th century, become a bit too cliché just from pure oversaturation? Are the hard-boiled detectives in trench coats feeling, a little too tired for a modern audience? And with supernatural mysteries, Do the paranormal elements maybe distract from the concrete, logical answers that hardcore mystery readers really crave? It's a fascinating question about how our collective desire for resolution directly shapes what we consume. Which brings us to Section 4, Changing the Face of Crime. So, the crucial point here is this. While the actual face of crime in America is incredibly diverse, the publishing industry has, historically, marginalized authors of color, aggressively keeping the genre's author base overwhelmingly white. And this isn't just some anecdotal observation. It's a well-documented structural reality within the traditional publishing food chain, literally from agents to editors all the way to marketing departments. To really ground these abstract industry statistics in lived reality, just listen to this reflection from acclaimed author Rachel Housel Hall. She describes attending these big mystery conferences and being one of the only Black writers in the room. Being visibly invisible takes a massive emotional toll. It's a pretty stark reminder that while readers are at home consuming stories about justice and truth, the actual creators of those stories are very often navigating profound isolation within their own professional communities. And one of the biggest structural barriers these authors run into is what industry insiders call the "we already have one" syndrome. Literally, that's what it's called. It's this entirely misguided publishing perception that the market will only bear a tiny number of books featuring non-white protagonists. Historically, editors have assumed that, well, if they already represent one Black mystery writer, they don't need to read material from another. As if diverse authors are just entirely interchangeable and not, individual artists crafting highly distinct, unique stories. And then, even when they do get published, there's this massive struggle just for basic mainstream placement. Author Gar Anthony Haywood hits the nail on the head regarding retail. He points out that if books by authors of color are systematically pulled out of the main mystery and thriller sections and just relegated to a niche category way in the back corner of a bookstore, they're actively blocked from reaching a broad readership. These authors are fighting to break out of forced categorization just to compete fairly in the marketplace. Which honestly highlights a deeply frustrating double standard detailed in our sources. On one side, you have marginalized authors writing their authentic, lived truths, and they often face intense pushback from publishers who tell them their work isn't urban enough or doesn't fit into preconceived stereotypes. But on the other side, non-POC authors are frequently rewarded with massive marketing budgets and critical acclaim for writing gritty stories about those exact same marginalized communities. It's a wild irony where authenticity gets questioned, but appropriation is sometimes heavily marketed. Now, the good news, the momentum is finally shifting. As author Kelly Garrett points out, publishing is finally waking up and realizing there is a massive audience for these books. We are absolutely in an exciting moment of change, with readers actively demanding authentic voices and totally different perspectives. However, the critical takeaways here is that this push for diverse representation has to evolve from being just a temporary publishing trend into a permanent, structural status quo. The genre is absolutely at its richest when the authors reflecting our society actually look like our society. So this leaves us with the ultimate twist in today's explainer. You, the reader, are the one holding the magnifying glass. The market responds directly to what we consume. So take a look at your own bookshelf. Are you reading the exact same perspectives over and over, or are you exploring the incredible, authentic, new voices that are totally redefining the genre today? How will your choices help shape the future of mystery? Thank you so much for joining me on this investigation. Stay curious, keep reading, and I'll catch you next time.